Welcome. My presentation is a follow-up from Ted's, and it offers a slightly different approach towards mapping the societal relevance. Whereas he was approaching it from the point of view of the scholarly outlets, I take the view of the point of view of the audiences, the one who are using the results of research, whatever the form of the scholarly outlet. And hence the title, Searching for the Audience. And since I have only 10 minutes, I will very shortly introduce you to the framework that I work with, and that is, well, sort of commonly used by the people from the Netherlands that are here. And the rest I dedicate to sharing with you some very preliminary data on a case study, which I hope will provoke some discussion. The case study itself is not in the social sciences, I must say, but nevertheless, I think the results are very interesting. This is the sort of scheme that I work with. It's a model for societal relevance, which in fact builds on the previous work in Eric, Ciampi, and also on the Waardevol report. That is the last, well, building block in this line of thinking. And the basic idea is that by connecting research to societal practice, you create added value, and depending on the stakeholder domain that you can communicate with or interact with, you get value for the stakeholders. So when research is communicated in a public debate, you'll have cultural returns, and when you have interactions with companies or collaborations with other private organizations, you'll get economic returns, and interactions with professionals in the broadest sense will lead to social returns. In this model, that's the idea. And of course, interaction with other research peers can be simplified as the citation impacts in the biomedicine. But in the SSH domain, as Ted so nicely showed, these interactions tend to be much more extensive, and the boundaries will be much more fuzzy than here depicted. So from a research evaluation and log frame perspective, for me, you only get true attributable returns if a researcher actively connects his specific results to these stakeholder communities. Otherwise, it's sort of diffusion of research, which will work as well. But if you actively connect, then at least you know it's connected to your work. So even though this model seems very straightforward, it is all, for everyone, it's clear that it's very difficult to measure societal relevance. And that is so because there's a lack of idea who the stakeholders are, usually. A lot of organizations don't have a clue. They don't know what type of interactions they have with these stakeholders, and there's also a general lack of awareness because researchers tend to, well, to value their interaction with the peers much stronger. The second problem is that there is a lack of systematic recording of data. So there's a lack of sufficient data sets. As Ted said, MATIS is different for every university, and then we only talk the Netherlands, and every other country has another system or doesn't have a system. There are many interactions that are still implicit and not explicit, and there's not a lot of experience with by using other types of instruments to retrieve information, general available. And the last point is that there's a lack of in-depth research into the value of these interactions, because that's the hardest part, of course. What does it really mean? So, moving quickly now to picking back on the previous discussion, we have the scholarly outputs in the SSH, which Ted discussed, and I will try to use other methods to get a better idea of who the receivers of the research are, and are they identifiable, in which domains are they sitting, and which instruments might be useful to track them. And there are other sources for impact metrics, which are nicely described by Thelwall and Preem very recently, so it's all very new. And these tracking tools, also called old metrics, offers new approaches to tracking scholarly use. For instance, Mendeley, Site-You-Like, Impact Story, Webometric Analyst are all very new instruments. They offer alternative and complementary approaches. They are often faster because they look at other types of outputs, such as articles, blog posts, and also videos, data sets, or else. But, it's a big but here, the quality and the reliability is still very questionable, and the use of it and what you can do with it is all very premature. But when you don't use it, you don't know what the troubles are and what you can do, what might be useful, what the use might be. So we had a case study which actually was started off as a plain question for the surface work from a UN organization, the FAO, the Food and Agricultural Organization, who have who deliver a very wide range of reports, which belong all to the grey literature, because they are of course not part of the Web of Science. And their question was, is it possible to assess the impact of these reports in a bibliometrical type of way, of course. So in a way we translated their question as who are your audiences, and not just go straight to the Web of Science and see whether there are citations. I will show you in a minute that they are. But take this question a bit broader and see whether there are other professional organizations, companies in the developing world, because that is their prime target, help develop the developing world in increasing food security, agricultural development, natural resources, and that type of thing. And whether there is any sign of society, of interaction with the society at large and public debate. So we used these new instruments, and I've plotted them in my scheme. So citations in WAS we tried, we took as a way to track the interaction with their scientific peers. We used Mendeley, which is a reference manager and also tracking system in which you can find the readers of a report, and that's much bigger than scholarly articles, but also books and reports and so on. And they have some utilities attached to this tool. We didn't look at downloads, but we also used total impact. We thought it would be useful to track the cultural users, but it seems that they are on the boundary of socio-economic and cultural users. But of course, well, this is just arbitrary in a way. So I will talk you through these three domains very shortly. And this is the first, it's the easy bit, so to speak. As with all these social science and humanities type of outlets, a lot of them are traceable in the Web of Science, and the same holds for these FAO reports. We had a selection of 837 reports, which were published from 95 till 2011. The majority, I think 95%, since 2000, so the last 10 years. And there were almost 3,000 citations to these reports in the Web of Science. And these almost 3,000 citations belong to 1,960 citing papers. So there, in one paper there were more references to these reports. Not all of them, of those reports were cited in the WAS. Only 305 of these reports, so the remainder was not cited in WAS. Which means that on average there were 3.27 citations. Well, never mind, it's not really relevant, the numbers here. What is interesting when you analyze these citing papers, so the papers that refer to these FAO reports in more detail by their language and the noun phrases in the titles and in the abstracts, you will see that in the dark, and you plot them in this map, you see that in the hot spots, so the red ones, the red areas, The words are there as well. There's policy issue, challenge, and so on. These are the type of literature in the scientific field that discusses these reports. So it's a very obvious place that the FAO reports have in this field. And the other one, which is a bit hot, relates to the natural resources, concentration, can read it from here, sample experiment, so it's soil related. So it's very much in the heart of FAO's policy goals, so to say. So obviously, even though this grey literature is not in the Web of Science, it does have a strong impact on the scientific domain. That's one. The second one, this socio-economic users. This is what we use the Mendeley for, the scholarly article, which contains scholarly articles broadly and reports, and we try to characterize the users and the readers, because in Mendeley you can check the reading of a report. And we had only 77 of these publications, mainly in biotechnology and food security. This was a selection made by themselves, and this is all manual work. I'll speed up. The number of readers for these publications is high, 10 readers on average, and in the top 10 of these 77 reports, the mostly read report was even read 100 times. You also can see who is the discipline and the background of the readers. You can track that as well, because you have to sign up with Mendeley, and then you have to indicate your position and your academic role, if you have any, or your background and the field you're working in. And this is, I have to explain a bit. The readers, we decided, but this is arbitrary, I must admit, that the professors and the assistant professors would belong to the scientific domain, because, well, they probably work in, or they most likely work in academia, but that for other research scientists and students, it's not necessarily so that they will end up in academia. It's more often not that they end up in academia. And then the PhDs, that was 12%. So when you looked at the professors and the assistant professors and the ones really working in academia, that was 24%. And 30% was working, was a scientist from background, but not necessarily working in science. So we decided them to be put into the socio-economic domain. This doesn't add up to 100, but that is because you only have access to the top 3 and not to the full picture. The same holds for the disciplines. Of course, it's not surprising that when you look at biotechnology reports and food security reports, that the biological sciences and the environmental sciences are dominant. But I found it very surprising that the social sciences and the economics had a lot of readers as well, which means that in those sciences there is this type of grey literature is being used quite well. And then you also have access to the geography of the readers, and of course the Western and the developed world is much more active in this field. But it was good to see that the next 2 countries after the top 3 are the BRIC countries like Brazil and India. They are picking up, and they are using apparently these reports produced by the FAO to, well, I hope to their own good, and to develop their food and agricultural policies maybe. At least it could be like that. And then the cultural uses, we did some work on total impact, which is now called Impact Story. So it's improving and developing very quickly. And the main things that you see and track here are Facebook and Twitter type of reactions. Facebook shares we only took, because I think just Facebook likes is too weak, and Facebook shares is a little bit more. If I look at myself, it takes a while for me to share something with somebody. what you see is that in these new social media, there's a lot of activity, but it is very recent. It's only the reports from the last, well, let's say 1 to 3 years that catch some social media responses.
Sorry, Ingeborg, it's important to take some time for discussion, so I don't suppose you could move to conclusions. Please.
Yes, this is the last one. So the early response, the tweets, it's not only, what I found it's worthwhile mentioning, the tweets, it was not only public debate, it was a lot of companies and NGOs responding to this report. And then, of course, when you put together all these type of outlets and list them together, you get a sort of ranking. That's explicitly not the intention of doing that. What I think is, what you can do with it is you get a visibility profile. If you attract a lot of citations and social media attention and readers, then you can say that your report is very visible. And then you say, oh, well, that's very good. But that might be very well so because a lot of attention was attracted to those reports by the organization themselves. And this is the top 10. But when you look at the bottom, there are 20 reports that have a 0 at all places. And it's also, so it means that the ones that are here are more visible than the bottom. But the question is, what does it mean? The fact that this is visible means that you can now have a handle to dig deeper into the audiences that these reports serve, and that you also have to think as an organization that the reports that have caught none response whatsoever, what is the reason for that, and why is that so invisible to the rest of the world? So it is a first use of altmetrics, and the impact or value is too far off as far as I'm concerned. But visibility to specific audiences can be traced. And what I would like to see, and that's the discussion that I had with Ted, is to see whether you can connect the audiences to the types of outlets more specifically in the framework that we have in the Netherlands. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.